Hi there, this is Jonathon Wilson from groovewindow.com, and I've got a new funk groove for you. Funk groove number 5 in D minor. This one's pretty funky, but it's pretty jazzy in a lot of ways too. It's fusiony in sections. There's almost kind of like bebop lines in the solo, but there's some hard groove and stuff too. I hope you like it. It's not the easiest tune in the world. It's going to be a challenge if you want to take a crack at this one. But to get started, let's just take a listen to the tune. Okay, just a reminder, you can always go back to groovewindow.com and download sheet music, MIDI files, all of that kind of stuff. You can find it over there. So if you're wanting to read the music on this, that's where you can get it. MIDI files are there, that sort of thing. People have asked for a run through of the tune without any backing at a little bit of a slower tempo so that they could sort of see things better. That's going to be coming up next. If that's not for you, go ahead and skip it. And then I'll go through each section as a tutorial, giving you some tips, showing you the notes, talking about the chords, the usual kind of stuff that'll hopefully give you all the ammunition you need to get this one under your fingers. So with that, let's take a listen to the tune at a slower tempo without any backing. People say that the beginning is an excellent place to start. So let's start there. Let's take a look at the intro and what you might need to play that. The very beginning of this tune is loud as expletive of your choice. You want to lay into this thing pretty good. And you'll notice that there's some pedal markings. The point there is to sort of hit the first couple notes to D's in octaves, almost down to the very bottom of the piano. Hit that pedal, and then you're going to gliss up to these first couple chords, which is a D minor 7th chord. And then you're going to put a little ghosted left-hand note, and then a G major triad, inverted, and down to an F major triad. So those notes again, D octaves, gliss up. Okay, so at a slightly faster tempo, some things to think about. You're going to really hit those Ds nice and hard. That little ghosted left-hand note is just kind of a little thing to kind of keep some rhythmic intensity going. Rhythmically, it's worth saying that this swings a little bit. You've got 16th notes at, you know, da 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 da. You want to swing those a little bit. Bump, 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 bump. Okay, let's get into that next section a little bit. After you've played those first things, you've got a couple more ghosted things, and this is kind of fun because you hit the first C with your left thumb, then play the C with your right thumb, then down to an A, and then those same triads, F major, up to G major, and back down to F. Okay, so you're going to do... So that whole first measure sounds a little like this, kind of slowly. Just going to repeat that over and over a few times. Okay, moving on to the second measure. It's the same thing at the beginning. But then you've got this little lick that is written with a grace note, A flat down to G. So the real notes of the pattern are G, F, D, and C, with a little lead in of this A flat. And when I play this up to tempo, I tend to do it as a triplet. It's written as a grace note. You can do it either way. I think they're both fine. So the second measure, or as a triplet. Okay, so we take those first two bars at a slightly increased tempo so you can start to see the way things are going to work. And I'm kind of using back and forth between grace note and triplets in those figures. Just a little note here. In general, this style of music, funk, as written, is a general suggestion, right? So if every once in a while you notice that I play things slightly different from the exact notation, that's the way this style works. All right, so going on, same thing. We've got the third bar is exactly the same as the first bar. And then we do another bar with a little break after it. This is the fourth bar, and we reach down to almost the bottom note of your keyboard. Hopefully you've got an 88 key so you can reach down here. If not, just leave the bottom note out. This is just a walk up from B to C sharp to D in octaves. And so the rhythm there, you'll notice that B is an offbeat and it's longer than the other two notes. So you kind of want to emphasize it a little bit and play it long, and then the C and the C sharp are shorter. Okay, then it just repeats. It goes back to the beginning. We play the whole first thing again, and it leaves out it only does that one time, the walk up. And then there's a little break at the end. So we're here on measure 1, 2, the second ending of the music, if you're following that. Just like the first bar, and there's a little break here because this is where we're going to start going into the main melody of the tune. So this is the end of the intro. It's the second measure of the second ending. And we've got a big... And there's almost like a break there that you want to give some space before going into, which is the beginning of the melody. All right, so let's hear that whole intro at kind of a medium tempo from the beginning up to that melody point. Right into the melody. All right, with the intro out of the way, we're going to move into the main melody of the tune. That's coming up next. Going to be a little tricky, and I'm sure you can figure it out. All right, the main melody section of this, a couple things to talk about. First of all, you're going to be having to do two things at once with your right hand. You've got the melody itself, A, C, and E, but then you're going to be playing some kind of rhythm patterns with the left side of your right hand. Okay, and then that keeps going. So the melody itself, without any of the rhythm parts, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And then it kind of gets out of that mode, and there's a little lick that I'll show you at the end. But so while that's going on with basically your pinky and some of these upper fingers, you're going to be having to play a rhythm section with your thumb and the left side of this hand. So we start, left hand plays a D. This is all kind of a D minor feel that's going up to G major and down to D. Excuse me. And the way it works, same thing here. D, 2 notes on the left hand, then you've got a little ghosted right hand thing. You can almost think of this as like a slap bass thing. Right? Now, even before we get too much farther into this, and I should have talked about this during the intro, this tune has a swung feel. Those 16th notes, it's not... which might be cool if you did the right kind of thing behind it. But this is designed to be swung a little bit. And the thing you don't want to do is to swing it too much. Okay, swing is taking those 16ths and stretching them into triplets where you play the first and last part of a triplet. So if you've got, you're going to hear bump, 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 but do not play this that way. You want the swing to be somewhere in between straight and that all the way swung feel. If I were to play this that way, it would sound like this. Hokey as all get out, right? So swing it less than that, right? So it's a subtle thing, but you want to kind of stretch those swing notes out so that, I mean, if you think about jazz players and jazz solos, those licks, there's some swing there, but it's not all the way swing. And this is a thing to master when you're playing this kind of thing. All right, so we're moving on. After we've gotten through that first part, now, the melody, basically the main notes are A, B, C, D, up to E flat, and there's a little ornament at the beginning where you play C and B leading into that A. Okay, and as that happens, you hit that E flat in the melody. Your left hand goes to F, because we're really moving into kind of a F minor 7 chord here. up to B flat. So same idea as before, with the little popped up F ghost note and A flat and C going up to B flat and D. Now from here, you're going to reach down with your left hand. Quickly slide your hand so that your thumb is on that F you just played. Reach way down to this low F octave and then walk up A flat, A natural, and then we're going to do a big B flat thing, and I'll talk about that in a second. But first of all, that little walk in the left hand. So you want to kind of lean with that but-omp, and then those A flat and A notes walking up are short. It's a little bit like in the intro. Okay, now let's talk about this B flat thing that's coming up. This is a B flat ninth chord, so we've got B flat in the left hand, then A flat, C, that's your ninth, D, which is the third, and F. Okay, pop your left hand up an octave to that B flat, back down, and then drop the bass to A. This is an A7 with a sharp 5 chord. There's your 7th, there's the 3rd, and that, if it was E, it would be the 5th, but we push it up a half a step to make it the sharp 5. Okay, and the rhythm on this thing, you hit the downbeat, and then the next 3 chords are short and punchy, and they're offbeats. So I'm going to show you with just the right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. See, none of those were on the beat. They all anticipated the beat that was coming up. Okay. And those, you hold the long one, the first one out nice and long, and then the 3 that come up are all short. Bum, bum, bum. And then you play this lick, which is just a blues scale. So, and I'm over swinging it here in the slower tempo, but. And then you're into just exactly like the beginning. And it repeats. So we play that whole melody twice. And then there's an important thing when you get to the second ending. There's a big space here of 2 beats right at the end that you want to leave a nice big hole there, because this is going to lead into the bridge, which is coming up next. But let's hear that second ending so you can kind of get a feel for that space. Right? You want that kind of thing. All right, let's just run through that whole main melody at a medium tempo. Let's move on to the bridge. All right, with the intro and the main melody out of the way, we're going to move into the bridge, which is a little bit more fusion-y sounding, but it's super fun to play. Okay, now that we're at the bridge, this will happen twice in the tune. Once here as we're just reaching it now, and once again after the solo, and it's nice and quiet. This is super fun to play. It's pretty jazzy. This is where we start getting away from some of the funk and more towards the beginnings of some fusion feel. But you've got, in the right hand, this is basically a G minor 7th, or a G minor 9th. Right, those are the notes, but we're going to go start with the 7th, add the 9th, and the minor 3rd, and that adds, these 2 right next to each other makes this cool dissonance of this tight voicing, and then the D on the top. So we've got that going on in the left hand, and then or in the right hand. And the left hand is the fun part of this. It's basically this big, almost like a slap bass. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on there. There's our G minor 9th in the right hand, and then play the G, but we're not on the downbeat there. It comes in after the downbeat. G down to D, down to the lower G, and then you hit the right hand G minor ninth in between, and your left hand goes to an F sharp, and your right hand changes down to A, E, A, and D, which is just kind of this chordal jazz voicing. It's essentially feels a little bit like a D major ninth chord, okay, but kind of spread out. Right, those same notes that way. Very jazz fusion-y kind of feel here, but rhythmically. Okay, so let's talk about that again. Got the G in between, together, got two notes together, then we got that same in the left hand where we reach down in between, and then we do exactly the same pattern but on A minor. So those notes, that's just an A minor ninth, exactly up one step from where we were with the G minor ninth. Same kind of thing here. We go down to G sharp, F sharp, B, and E to make that kind of, it's like an E major chord. So those first two bars together. And we repeat the first bar again. And guess what? We just do exactly the same thing, but we're going to go to B flat now. And we're going to change it a little bit here, but B flat, A flat, C, D flat, and F. It's exactly the same chord, just up a half step from the A where we were a second ago. And now, right here, once we get to that same exact thing, we hit a couple notes together. A flat, this is basically a big A flat minor 13th chord. So if we hear that from the beginning, and there's a little ghosted D to lead us back into the idea of G minor there. And then it repeats. We're into the second ending. We've got this in the right hand. This is basically an E half diminished chord, inverted. We're gonna, okay. So the left hand, you're doing this kind of start on the E, down an octave, and then walk up G, G sharp, A. See the rhythm? Okay, and in the right hand, you've got that G, B flat, D, and E, which is that E half diminished chord. You hit two together, 2/8 notes, and then G, sort of bump, bump, boom, down. You kind of do the whole chord split into two pieces. And then G, F sharp, or C sharp and F. This is that A7 with the sharp 5 that we talked about in the main melody. So, and then we're back to the main melody. Okay, so one time through the entire bridge. Oh, one thing I wanted to say: when you're doing that left hand, once you've got this comfortably under your fingers, it's really fun to just kind of loosen up that left hand and let the thumb parts of that really kind of pop out. And we're back to the melody. Okay, now that we're through most of the sort of playable parts of the tune, we're going to move into the first part of the solo. This is where we start to get into some of the more traditional straight-ahead jazz flavors in here. Some good licks. The first half is a little easier than the second half, so learn this one first and then we'll move on to the tough part. Okay, so after you make it through the main melody one more time, we're into the solo. We're going to break this into two parts because there's two sections and there's quite a bit of stuff to talk about here. So once we hit the solo, we're at the end of our little groove. I'm going to reach up to this G and start the beginning of the kind of melody solo section in the right hand. We're also going to set up what we're going to be kind of generally doing behind the solo in the left hand, which is this pattern where we've got a D. Those notes are F, C, and E, which is kind of a D ninth chord with a bunch of the notes left out. And then we move the C down to B. This is a very, very common jazz voicing. Usually you would see this played as a G 13th chord. So we've got the 7, the 3, and the 13. But basically all we're doing here is hinting at the G because we never really play the G in the left hand. So, and generally that pattern is going to be behind this entire solo with some chord changes. So on the right hand, rhythmically there, that G comes in as an anticipation. It's not right on the downbeat. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Notice the left hand is just repeating that same thing. We've got a nice, easy little lead in. We want to kind of warm this solo up a little bit. So we start there. Okay, we repeat this a few times. And then we're about to get into the first kind of real jazz run lick here that starts. On the end of beat 3, we're going to start on a G. What? Yeah, so basically we start with a G, F, E, then back up to the G, A flat, and we're aiming for this B flat. So 1, 2, 3. But from there we're not going to stop on the B flat, we're going to keep going. Okay, B flat, C, D flat, E flat, C. And from the C, we're going to reach down, C, G, B flat, A flat. That's just a little chromatic. And once we hit the A flat, we pause there. It's an 8th note instead of a 16th. So the whole thing slowly, 1, 2, 3. Okay, there's the first half of our lick. The second half, we go up to B flat and just walk down chromatically all the way to C sharp, and we skip the E flat. To C sharp, and then from C sharp we're going to go up. We're basically playing an A 7th chord there. And then this is a really common jazz thing. This is the sharp 9 and the flat 9 of an A7 chord. To the A. So the entire lick, 1, 2, 3. And of course, your left hand's going to be playing along with you here, so let's see what he's going to be doing. Right as we get to this B flat in the right hand, the left hand is going to move up to F, and he's going to reach up and anticipate beat 2 with an F minor 9th, E flat, G, A flat, and C. And right as he plays that G, we're going to walk up from A flat, A natural, and then B flat. That's just a B flat 9th chord. B flat, D, A flat, and C. Then he's going to reach down to A. And then which is that same A7 with a sharp 5. 7, 3, sharp 5. So the left hand, notice that those are anticipations of the beat. Okay, and with the right hand, all I'm going to do, this is the second half of the lick here. We're back to the beginning. Okay, so one more time from the top at a medium tempo. Actually, let's do the whole solo from the first half of the solo at a slower tempo like this. Oops. Okay. Things are about to get hairy in the second half of the solo. All right, with the easier half of the solo out of the way, we're going to move into the kind of rough stuff. There's a lick at the beginning of the second half of the solo, which I had to woodshed with my metronome a little bit, and I imagine you will too. If not, good for you. But here we go, second half of the solo. All right, now that you're past the first half of the solo, you're maybe going to need your metronome for this because it starts to get a little bit ugly. At a slow tempo, what we're going to be looking at is this. Okay, and there's more, but let's start with that first little section. You hit the A in octaves up to the C. You're going up to the E, and you're going to kind of slide off of these E flats and then tremolo that E. And the left hand's doing exactly the same thing as it has this whole time. Now, basically what you're doing is this. Okay, so it's just a bunch of notes. Boom, 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 boom. With a little rolling chord before each note. The tricky part of this is lining it up with the left hand. So it comes in, boom, boom, boom. Right there, it's an anticipation or an offbeat of beat 3. Once beat 3 hits, it's the next 16th note. And that A falls on the 16th note before the downbeat of the next measure. So, and what I like to do is practice this section, because this is the tricky part where you're doing the right hand, you're continuing those rolls while your left hand is doing the comping thing. So you hit that first, and notice that the E aligns with the second bass note, and then you reach up for the first chord, and then this falls in between before you hit that next one. So very slowly. Again, notice that I'm hitting the A before the downbeat. 2, 3, 4. Sloppy. Again. And I'm sorry, boys and girls, but there's just no shortcut around this. You're just going to have to get out the metronome and work that a little bit at a time. Speed it up one notch, notch by notch, until it's under your fingers. Once you've got that, maybe put it with the top. And then it starts to kind of make sense once you've done it from that slow speed. Now we're going to keep going here. We've got another little lick. Basically, C, B, A. These are all white keys. Slowly. That's happening mostly by itself. Right as you hit this G, you're going to do the comping pattern in the left hand. And that's a little bit kind of funky just in the way this is written, because you've got a, in your right hand you've got an F, and in the left hand you've got that normal chord. And then right there, you're playing an E in the right hand, and the left hand is supposed to be playing this chord. Well, guess what? Both two fingers are playing the same note there, so just leave it out of the left hand. Okay, and then the final little lick here of the second half of the solo, it starts right on the downbeat. And let's talk about the right hand first. Well, the left hand is just going to go up to F. We did this in the first half of the solo, F up to F minor ninth, and that's basically all you got to worry about on the right hand. And then there's a little turn, and then it's just a big. Okay. It helps to have the left hand in there so you can feel where the rhythm is. I'm intentionally emphasizing the beats. A little bit slower. Okay, and you don't want to emphasize the beats like that when you play. This should be a nice flowing line. And I can't play it. And then from there, we're going to lead into this groove thing. We're playing a big, kind of grace note on the G flat up to the G. Okay, and that's essentially this kind of a funky 13 flat 9 chord in A, but got this lick, and this is really the lead in into the I'm just going to call it kind of a groove thing. It's the latter half of the solo, and we play it again at the very end of the piece, and so I'm going to cover this lick in the next section. Okay, with the solo mostly out of the way, we move into a section that I just called the groove. It's sort of the end of the solo. It's also the end of the entire piece, and it's just sort of this kind of funky, big chords, sloppy thing that sort of froths and makes its way through the piece. So we'll move into the groove next. All right, I chickened out at that last solo section and left off this lick, but we're getting into the, I guess I just call this sort of a groove section. It's like the tail end of the solo. It's also the end of the piece. And what we're going to do is we ended up with this. We've got this little lick. Okay. These are called double stops. We've got the D up at the top, G sharp, and then an A, and then back down to the G sharp, and this is a triplet pattern. And you're going to play this many, many times in this little section, so it's important to kind of get that under your fingers. I often play this one wrong. I'll hit that E instead of the D, which sounds fine, but as written, okay, so work that one out because you're going to need it a lot. Okay, so then we get into the groove here. Notice that if you're following the music, the left hand is written in bass clef, but an octave down from where it's written. So you got to go all the way down here to this low D. If your keyboard doesn't go down that far, don't worry about it. Play it up an octave. It's fine. But if you have it, we're going to do, well, let's just talk about the left hand here because that's kind of where most of the action is. Up an octave, down to F, walk up, F sharp to G, and then bum, 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 and we're down to G, A flat, A, B flat. Okay, so just by itself, the left hand bass line that is going behind this whole thing is. Okay, and over that, as if that wasn't hard enough, you're going to play, that's a D ninth. We've played this before. This is basically the same thing that we've been playing in the comping with our left hand this whole time. Down to that G, but we've got a little grace note in there. And there's a little punch halfway through, so. Once rid of the B flat, I love to throw these things in here. This is this huge B flat 7th. Okay, if you can't reach, leave out the top note. That's good enough to do it without that, but if you can get it in there, kind of need a fairly large hand to stretch that whole chord. Same chord, just down a half a step. Okay, I'm just moving every note down half a step. Got that? And that lick. And we do it again. So the lead in, now we're going to change things up a little bit. It feels like it's going to do the same thing. Hit your pedal so that things are ringing and just slide up. Okay? It's that same chord, but it's a minor ninth. And we're going to slide down. And then we've got just a big F major triad up to G. So. And then this is just what we did before, with some rhythmic changes. So there's our B flat 7, 9th chord. We hit the bass note, then the right hand, then pop up, play that again, left hand. I'm going to do that slowly. Kind of fun to play. The lick. Okay, so I'm going to play that a few times so you can kind of get the feel for it. And that's where that ends, and it's going to lead us back into the bridge, which we've already covered. All right, with the groove out of the way, there's really nothing left to learn. We've got a quick little wrap up here. We'll kind of talk about a couple things and talk about the very last lick of the piece, but that's it. Okay, the good news is we've covered everything. I'm going to kind of cover, there's a few things to tie this all together, some tips, and then the last lick of the piece, which we'll kind of cover here, but basically this is the last section. All right, so we just got done with the groove. And that's kind of a big frothing, loud, crazy thing. We're going to go into the bridge again super quietly. And it's important that you kind of drop the volume way down. And I like to play the chords. It's written this way in the sheet music, where instead of holding the right-hand chords out, which is how we did it the first time, I like to play those short and quiet. Okay, so coming out of that, a little bit of this. Okay, so that's one little tip. Then we just basically go back, we play the bridge exactly as it was the first time, but sort of quieter and shorter. And I like to kind of build up the volume a little bit as you're playing through it, so that by the time you get out, you're into the main melody again, and it's at a normal volume. Okay, play the melody twice, and then on the second ending, it goes back into the groove. exactly like it was at the end of the solo with the whole... And then at the very, very end of the piece, where we play the lick, instead of playing the left hand, we've got this, just a straight blues scale. Okay. And I like to gliss down through after that last chord. Now, one thing about glisses, the glissandos, you don't want to lean too heavy into, you don't want, okay, that's too much. You want to lightly trail across, so there's just the hint of the glissando. Okay, it's kind of a little falling action at the end. Okay, just a little bit like that. And that's it. At this point, you've made it to the end. If you can play this all the way through, I commend you. This is not the easiest tune in the world, so congrats if you've made it. Good job. All right, you made it. We got to the very end. I hope you've enjoyed this one. If you've got this under your fingers and you've got and can play it, I would love to see a recording. Always send those to me. If you get a video, post it up on YouTube, send me those. Love to see people trying to take this stuff on. Hope you enjoyed this one. I had a fun time writing it and playing it, and we'll see you next time.